أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Jummah Mubarak. Inshallah, we will continue, perhaps even wrap up the portion of the text we were reading from the 20th word today. This is on page 277 for me. So last week we had discussed the important answer to the first important question. Anyone remember what that question was and what the answer was? And who would like to share a remnant of that memory, an inkling of it, perhaps? Sarah, you want to share anything? And if not, well, I mean, the text is right there, right? So the question had been, the Quran was revealed for man. So why does it not describe the wonders of civilization explicitly, for they have the greatest importance in his eyes? Why does it suffice with secret signs, concealed illusions, slight indications, slender reminders? So the question reframed or rephrased was, why doesn't the Quran mention the iPhone or the airplane, right? Maybe we could shut this a little bit. And we had talked about perhaps the purpose of the Quran, how we approach the Quran, what we expect from a speech that comes with the claim of being guidance from my creator, right? And so on. Anything anyone would like to add? Any lingering comments, remarks, questions on that first topic, right? Hopefully this has kind of shuffled your memory about what the discussion was about the marvels of civilization and whatnot, right? We had talked about, like, do the inventions, do the infrastructures that we've built up today, do any of it equal to the wing of a fly? And some had said yes, some had said no, right? Okay, if not, yeah, Atik, please.
I guess generally, one of the arguments was that man is always constantly inventing new things. And so if you mention any specific thing, it's at some point is going to be outdated, and then you're going to have something that's irrelevant, at a later time where it's like, this is not even a interesting or maybe a proof or a sign of God's power or something. Whereas something like maybe the sun, the moon, the earth, these things are more permanent and cannot be matched by man's creative efforts. Something like that.
Just to add on, what I remember from last week was, like, I mean, the first thing is, yeah, I guess as a human, we might have these type of, I don't know if you call it ego or arrogance, to say, yeah, these are such amazing wonders, like, why are they not described so much? But then coming to the purpose of the Quran, which is more, I mean, the purpose of the Quran, which we studied or we're trying to understand, is more about guidance for us, about understanding the names of my creator, understanding why I live, why I go through the things I do. So when I look at it in that perspective of trying to understand those names of my creator, why I am created, why he created me, when I think of that, it makes sense that the sun is talked about rather than an iPhone. Because when I look at the sun, I see those names and it's clear, and it's not like hidden through humans that might put other things onto it. With the iPhone, yeah, it's cool, but it's not even that amazing compared to the sun, even on a physical basis. And then in terms of a meaning basis, the sun is so much more meaningful for me. It's so much easier for me to extract meaning from it. So then, yeah, an iPhone, just there, if there's going to be an indication, it would be the most subtle indication, because that's what it's worth in terms of my education. Yeah, and I guess even as a practical conclusion I drew from last week is, sure, you can learn by looking at human engineering. You can understand your creators' names by looking at human engineering and advancements in technology and your workplace, and that's the ideal. But we shouldn't be also dishonest with ourselves where the places where I can find it the easiest and the quickest and the best is not by looking at a monitor generally. It's not by my workplace or these places. Like it's by contemplating on the things that are more obvious to me. Those are just what I remember.
And so there was two major premises last week. One was like the main answer the author gave was Quran does not explicitly talk about these wonders because this is their share from the speech of Quran. What does he mean by that? He says the purpose of Quran is about describing the creator or telling me about my creator, how he is manifesting in this existence, and also how worship is happening. So there were two aspects. So what Abdurrahman said was about the first part, how the creation tells me about my creator. So sun, moon, clouds, or seeds tell me about my maker much more clear than an airplane, an iPhone would tell. A bird tell me about my creator more than an airplane can say. I mean, in terms of its clarity. But he also mentioned the second aspect, which was about worship. So Quran is telling me my purpose in this existence, which is to be a worshiper. And in this sense, a bird or a seed is explaining or demonstrating more of a worshiper than an iPhone would be. Okay. Babies are hijacking our discussion today. So in terms of worship, an iPhone is, the way it is designed is to not even communicate, but maybe more maximize humans' comfort or consumption. But when we look at the just the innate abilities of a bird, how it is perfectly obeying what it's supposed to do. Like we don't see a bird who is pretending to be a falcon, like a sparrow is a sparrow. It's whatever it's meant to be, it is perfectly obeying that. So in this sense, demonstrating his perfect obedience and also neediness and being provided. So the worship is being observable there. So the author was saying that in this sense, since Quran is also going to tell me about how to worship and what it means to be a worshiper, the creation has more share in there relative to wonders of human civilization.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for that. Any final remarks on this first question? And that was more or less a summary. I mean, we spent, I think, quite the entirety of last week's discussion on that topic. So we can, yeah.
If we carefully read how it starts and so on, also we realize that the question is not that why Quran is talking about the natural creations, but not, let's say, human creations and so on. That's not the question. The question is the Quran is mentioning certain things, but not others that much. So the division between this is the man's creation, this is the creator's creation, is a made-up division only by us. Even in the text, there is no such like a division. Like there are some parts they may be read like this, maybe, but the division is not there, and it shouldn't be in our minds as well. Everything is God's creation. Some of them are clearer, some of them are more obscure. That's the only difference.
And what does the author mean by wonders of civilization?
What does wonders of civilization mean if you're saying everything's a creation? Well, it seems like he's saying, like, you know, wonders of civilization looks more like what man made.
So that's the thing. Like when we face such text or such discussions with our pre-assumptions in mind, So when we hear something like wonders of the civilization, we tend to read it as, okay, the wonders that we created. But it could be just like, the birds of, let's say, Philadelphia. What does it mean? It means the birds that you mostly see when you look at the Philadelphia. So the cars of New Orleans, okay? What does it mean? Does it mean that, the New Orleans has something special that creates these cars? No, it means, when you go there, this is the one thing that would attract, your eyes. So the wonders of civilization, you can read it as when you look at the part of the life that we call as civilization, you will see such and such creation mostly. I mean, this is at least how I tend to read.
And I guess just one other note on that, like in terms of what is apparent, what is not. Like oftentimes the examples given in the Quran are accessible to everyone, right? Like we can call them a quote unquote mundane, even though they're far from mundane, but like everyone has access to the sun. Everyone has access to whether it's a tree or a desert or a sea, some landscape that the Quran is mentioning. And that accessibility then allows for one's reflection on the qualities that they observe in those in that kind of creation. Yes, please.
So this discussion made me think that maybe we should also think about why does Quran not mentioning about wonders of science, let's say, at the same time, there are so many concepts that we can think about that belongs to the realm of science that are not mentioned in Quran for the reason that you just mentioned, I guess, because they are not accessible to the lay people, to the people who can, for example, a mitochondria, let's say, cannot be seen by naked eye, or wonders of, let's say, quantum mechanics is not easily accessible by lay people as well. So I think it boils down to the fact that the things that Quran mention is easily seen by people at a regular pace, regularly. So maybe we can add this emphasis on the discussion, I think.
Jazakallah khair. And I mean, when I come to the Quran, if I'm to receive what it offers, what it claims to offer, which is guidance, then I can only come to it as a human being, right? Not as a this and this career, this and this identity, right? Because I wanted to resolve my human questions, not my questions as an academic or my questions as a scientist or as, what have you, but my human questions, my needs, my expectations. And so I expected to also engage with me in terms of in that context. Any other comments, questions? That was last week, so maybe we can read the second question, inshallah. Any volunteers to just read? Yeah, Serene, please go ahead. I'd say read up to in short, but not including in short. We'll read that maybe as a conclusion, right? Inshallah.
The answer to the second question. If you say, none of my doubts remains now after these investigations, and I affirm that together with other wonders in the Qur'an are allusions to and indications of the wonders of modern civilization, indeed to further advancements, everything necessary for man's happiness in this world and the next is found within it in relation to its worth. But why does the Qur'an not mention them explicitly so that obstinate unbelievers would be compelled to confirm it, and our hearts also would be easy? The answer: religion is an examination, a test proposed by God so that in the arena of competition, Elevated spirits and base spirits may be distinguished from one another. Just as materials are plunged in the fire so that diamonds and coal, gold and earth separate out from one another, so too religion is a trial concerning the obligations placed on man by God and a driving to competition, which is what this abode of examination consists of. In this way, the elevated jewels in the mine of man's abilities become separated out from the dross. Since the Qur'an was revealed in this abode of examination, for man to be perfected through trial in the arena of competition, it will surely only allude to the hidden events of the future pertaining to this world, which everyone will see, and will only open the door to the reason to a degree that proves its argument. If it mentioned them explicitly, the mystery of man's accountability would be negated. Simply, if it would be as self-evident as writing, "There is no God but God," clearly in stars on the face of the skies, then everyone would have to affirm it whether they wanted to or not. There would be no competition, and the examination too would go for nothing. A spirit like coal would remain on the same level of a spirit like diamonds. Oh, yes. Abu Jahl the accursed and Abu Bakr the truthful would appear to be equal, and the mystery of the examination set by God lost. Which is the footnote.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you. So do we first understand the question, right? The question is saying, okay, I understand why the Quran is not mentioning all these wonders of civilization, all these inventions or advancements in technology. But why doesn't it just explicitly tell this truth? Tell the truth that man's happiness in this world and the next is found in relation to its worth, right? Why not this explicit expression?
So, like, is it like, okay, I understand why the Quran mentions them only little, but why not, when mentioning them little, just use their like names explicitly? Why Quran doesn't say there will be aeroplane, there will be, I don't know, there's trains in future? I guess that's how I understood the question.
Yeah, that makes
Correct me
sense.
if I'm wrong.
No. I think that makes sense as well. I think from the answer, the response that's given as well, like the understanding that I'm getting is why in general, right, are things not explicitly laid out for me? Like, okay, this explanation makes sense. Once we discuss it, we spend an hour and a half talking about it. But why is the truth not as clear as it can be, perhaps, is the more broader spirit of the question is what I'm getting. But perhaps as you said more specifically, it is also saying why not mention, the plane or this or that. Is this a question we have? Yeah? Okay. So what does he say in terms of the answer? Any thoughts? Yeah.
It's working. So my question is like similar to how you understood is like maybe the complexities or like the problems of life were not they laid out. Maybe if this understanding is right or wrong, you can tell or someone else, but why not simply say like why is poverty existing, or maybe another problem that exists in the real life, why does that exist? Maybe it could be, that is how I'm understanding the question, like it could be simply just laid out and like explained, and that it would be easier for people to understand it.
Assalamu alaikum. I think when I'm reading this question, it sounds almost like, so why do I need to go through this examination? Why can't the answers just be given to me? Why spend, like we're doing now, why spend these hours discussing it I spend a lot of time, a lot of years going through different experiences, trying to read the names of God. Why aren't they just there for me to read and then I'll be done with the lesson? And the answer to the question, it almost, at least at this point, it's not fully satisfying for me, because it's saying, well, then the examination would be futile. Like it wouldn't exist anymore. So if you could explain a little bit about like, how can we understand the wisdom behind this? Like when the author says arena of competition, the elevated spirits and base spirits may be distinguished from one another. I don't think there's much of a mention of why there needs to be that distinction, or what wisdom we can take from such a competition existing.
And also, like, is this the case? What is this arena of competition? What is this examination that it's talking about? Like, one question I had when I was reading this was, there seems to be this emphasis on competition, and if this was not the case, there would be no competition. Like, wait a second, what competition? Isn't this kind of similar to other ideologies that sort of set me against my other fellow creatures? Like, I'm coming to the Quran to escape from competition, but now it's telling me, oh, religion is an examination and you're competing. That feels very heavy on one's spirit. So first, how do we understand religion to be an examination proposed by God? And how do I understand perhaps my life as an arena of competition? Perhaps because if I accept those, then your question follows, right? So maybe spending a little bit of time unpacking these terms, unpacking these this understanding can be helpful. At least it would be helpful to me, because yeah, again, it was a lingering question. Zareen, I think.
I guess I was sort of thinking about, what do we think of when we hear the words like examination or test? Like, we often think, oh, we're going to be graded and there's going to be a certain number like attached to that grade that's going to sort of determine where I stand in like class, or like even further in my career. Like, if I don't get a good grade, then I can't like advance any further. But maybe that analogy doesn't work quite as well with like, I feel like it's not complete when referring to religion, because I guess we can't really expect a specific like number or grade in relation to the effort we put into our worship. Like, it's all sort of from what I understand, it's our efforts kind of come in second when it comes to like God's mercy. So I guess, I don't know, I think the purpose of like seeing it as an examination or test is more to see like how much we can learn from our experiences. I think the goal maybe is more so in the learning that happens, and that can only happen when you're tested on it. Like, anyone can say like, yeah, I know how to do this, but unless you're actually tested on it, then that, like, you don't really know for sure. For example, if I look at a specific question when I'm studying, if I look at a question, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of get this question. I think I'll be able to understand it for the exam, and I just skip it without trying to attempt it. Then maybe when I get to the exam, I find that, oh, I actually couldn't solve it. So maybe it's like, I think maybe trying to view it more as like a tool for learning, I guess.
Right. Jazakumullah khair. And I mean, on that note, like so many like pedagogical workshops, learnings, research is spent on trying to figure out what helps students learn, right? How should exams be? How should assessments be? What should their nature be? But it's never questioned that should there be, I mean, maybe it is, but it's taken for granted perhaps that, yeah, like the existence of some sort of assessment becomes a tool for one's learning, for one's retention of understanding, if you will. Any other thoughts on this? Yeah, there are two.
I actually had a question about like why is kind of deciphering between two people, like the footnote, like how would we know one from the other? Because the truth, like they would appear equal, but I find that odd because I'm like, if the Most High can't decipher who's good and who's bad, then like, or am I supposed to recognize who's good and bad? So I guess I'm not understanding like the competition part. The only reason why it didn't make sense to me is like if it's to decipher who is good and bad, I don't know if it requires the competition then, because ultimately you kind of knew from the beginning who's gonna be good and bad. So I don't know. I guess that's where I'm a little bit lost, but
Yeah, I mean, how I understood this, and others can add on, is that, you know, like if there's a question, a math question in front of two students, and you just directly tell them the answer, there's no way to measure which one, like the process of trying to figure out that equation or that formula is the very point of it, right? If both of them say, yeah, the answer is 5, that might be correct, but then there's no measure of if they learned anything, if they were able to refine the potentialities that were given to them, if they were able to, refine their quality of thinking, ability to discern, ability to reason further, right? Because there's this choice there and there's a potentiality there, but that potentiality becomes untapped or untouched if I'm never put in a position where I have to work for it, right? And through working for it, then I am able to enjoy the fleshing out of that potentiality. That's my understanding of it, but we can hear others as well. Where was the second mic? Oh, you have it. Okay.
In the example of the footnote with Abu Jahl and Abu Bakr, it's sorry, it's not that like Allah, as you said, Allah doesn't know. Allah does know, but it's for us as people. I guess in Brother Yusuf's style analogy, let's say Brother Yusuf is teaching a class with Sultan and I, and he knows Sultan is the better student, but he just writes answer question 1A, question 2B, C, and we just bubble it out, and those are the correct answers. We both get 100, but does that on the paper we're the same, but we're really not. He knows Sultan is the better student than I. So in that same analogy, that's what the footnote is trying to explain. Like we would not be able to distinguish. Also, I would like to add one more comment about the grading comment that sister made. We always tend to think about grades as a number because that's all that we do use, like school and all this school. But grading really can also mean, historically means like grading like crops or merchandise. Like this is A grade, this is B grade. You're talking about, because it matters to the price of the thing or the inherent value of the thing. If we take the analogy that we're like the crops of Allah, you know, some of these crops are rotten, let's say, and some are very good, you know. This is really common with tomatoes. You might get a tomato, it's really sweet, it has lots of flavor, and some other tomatoes, they're kind of bland. I'm sure that we have experienced this. So that's what the grading, when I think of grading, I think of this such grading, not like numbers grading. And I think that analogy is kind of stronger, at least for me.
Jazakumullah khair. So I'm going to ask again, like just speak up because we want the windows open, we want the airflow, but there's also inevitably sound. So inshallah, for everyone's benefit, just use your outside voice. Yeah, Brother Yusuf.
So I think I would just like to echo
Brother Yusuf,
Dar's-
please project and model what I mean.
So I would like to echo Sister Daratu's questions once more. So in the footnote, it says so that the good and bad is going to be distinguished. The question is relative to who? Of course, the obvious thing is, again, there's an assumption here. We say God, of course, knows it, which is, again, something to think about. How do you know God, of course, knows it? How do you come up with this statement? There's something to be thought about. But let's not get there. But before that, is it to show me also? I don't think the answer is so that I know whether Abu Bakr is good or Abu Jahl is good. The way I think the way I read the answer is so that you realize whether you are Abu Bakr or Abu Jahl. So the point is there is an education, and these like exam questions and whatnot is part of the training. And if you were given the answers, you wouldn't know what you are. Pretty much, you would never learn. So for your training, you are in need of going through that. Like, for example, if the student says, oh, professor, like rather than using this Socratic way of teaching, like by asking questions, just tell me the answer. You're lecturing. Just give me the answers. If I keep giving the answers, keep lecturing, and never use this just asking sometimes a question and then sometimes giving an apparently wrong answer just to puzzle you so that you realize, oh, this is where it starts, where it ends. These are the boundaries of knowledge. You will never learn. So this is to, okay, baby is hijacking us again. People, pay attention. So the point then is you will learn whether your potentiality is carved out to become a diamond, or you are going to, by your choice again though, because there's another question that's hidden in here. Well, Abu Jahl was by default like a rotten guy. Abu Bakr was like a diamond guy. And we just needed some sort of a test to take this out. Then Sultan will ask, am I Abu Jahl or am I Abu Bakr? And God will show me that I am Abu Jahl by putting me into test. So then God is responsible for me being evil, would be his question then. So we need to read these examples carefully. So what is being then meant in here is, oh, asker. And we do ask that question, actually. I was just pulling a picture. This was a famous picture in Turkey back in the day. I don't know if you can see this. This is a honey. It writes Allah in there on the honey. And this was like a miraculous, beautiful proof of God, right? And people used to share this a lot. Like the bees have written Allah in Arabic letters. So then God must exist. So if I have a tendency to forward this picture to my friend, then I would ask the question that the author is asking in here. Why didn't God explicitly say something in the Quran so that when my atheist friend suggests something, I will pull it up and say, see, say shahada, otherwise we will kill you. Like this becomes the attitude. So, but then author is really putting my attitude into question. Are you sure what you are talking about when it comes to belief? Are you sure what is the point of this life in here? It is education. You are here to learn. You are given a potentiality, but how are you going to carve this potentiality to become useful rather than like becoming a diamond, rather than being a coal, which is meant to burn? So that question is really highlighting this aspect, rather than what it is not saying is, oh, God is doing so that God will learn whether I am good or bad, or God is doing this so that we will all see whether Sultan is a good guy or bad guy. The answer is not seeing either one of these. It's not either one. The answer is saying a third one. The answer is saying that it is meant as such because you have a potentiality, and that potentiality, how do you learn? Ask that question. And as Sister Ashana was highlighting, learning is happening with those questions, those, when I say Socratic questions, you understand what that means, right? So you're not directly teaching something to someone, but you say, well, 2 + 2 is what? And you pause there. If you are teaching how to do summation to a student. So you are expecting the student to think about it so that he or she says, well, it is 3. No, 5. Oh, yeah, it is 4. So by doing this back and forth, then student starts learning. Even with Zainab, this is what we do. She is now learning how to sum. And we put numbers in one column, other column, put a summation equal sign. And she needs to practice to learn how summation works. This is how learning happens for a human being. So why, Yusuf, you are torturing the girl? Just put the numbers and put the correct answers, and she will memorize it and she will learn. It's not learning, though. Memorization is not learning. So her potentiality of how to think wouldn't become apparent if we just always give her 1 plus 5, 6, 1 plus 7, 8. Well, all these numbers in there. It's not learning. So if I have a tendency to ask that question, then I am missing the point of purpose of humans' creation on earth. Then, as Kadir was asking, I would be asking the question of, well, why children are dying in Gaza? Because this is challenging us find God. It would be very nice if somebody points gun to a child and then gun will backfire and the one who's trying to kill will die. And then we will definitely know God is merciful. Why is he putting us into this sort of a test where many of us are losing it and becoming enemies of God? Then that means I didn't understand what it means to learn, to read in the name of God. What is the purpose of human being created here?
Yeah, I think that's a great direction to pivot the conversation. I was also going to add that when it comes to understanding the I guess like the intent behind a lot of the things and trials that we're put through, the common theme that it seems like we always come back to is, well, if you want to understand your creator, study the creation. And I would like to invite us to think about, well, instead of, why is the test this way? Perhaps we can also look at it as, why was it made this way for us, right? So human beings, we can be known to be competitive, right? We can be known to kind of like be in certain mental states, places where, we were kind of bringing up certain questions about the examination, about the learning, the experience. So, just to bring it all full circle and to share that, I really feel like the tests were made for us to get the most out of the test, not just about the test and passing it itself, but the journey of the hardships, of the ease, and us as human beings. That's probably the best way for us to gain substance, to learn, or to even be prepared to pass any sort of examination.
Jazakallah khair. Any additional comments on this? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I want to add one thing. I'm not sure if the analogy of giving the answers to an examination is an helpful one.
Could you repeat what is not helpful?
The analogy of using education and giving the answers. That analogy, I think it's not that helpful, because I think the problem here is that people are being tested for they are in education itself. So what I mean is somehow elusive, but let me try. So let's think that the real goal of humans in this life is to become educated. I mean, the education that we are living, that we are taking now. I know that it's very problematic normally. There are so many problems in the education system right now, but let's imagine that. If that's the case, people who stick to their education would be going to their Jannah, and those who don't value education itself would go to Jahannam in this analogy. I think in Quran, in the system that we are given, the answers are already given. The problem is not that the fact that we are not given the answers. The answers are already given, but people who are being tested do not realize or accept the fact that they are being tested. So it's a matter of an acceptance that they are being tested. So I was going to add something, but Anyway, I couldn't.
Let
Yeah.
me maybe help you, and you can think of meanwhile. So I had somehow similar thoughts, not exactly, but I was thinking about the words that we use there, examination, test, and so on. In the English language, they have very specific connotations. Like you take a class, and then at the end of the class, there's an examination, and there are some options, some of them true, some of them wrong, whatever, and you select one of them. So when we look at the words that are used in original things like the tecrübe,
Here it does use imtihan.
imtihan is also used, yes. So yeah, for both of them. I was checking whether they have the same connotation as in Turkish and Arabic as well, and so on, and they do. So when we like the type of the examination, maybe examination may have such a connotation in English as well, I'm not sure. But the type of examination is mentioned is not, to my understanding, is that somebody will, teach you something and then ask you to see whether you learn it or not. But the examination itself is maybe literal translation would be experience. So it has the same meaning in Arabic as well, in Quranic language as well. The experience. By going through certain experiences, you learn something. Okay? So this is what examination here that is mentioned here. Rather than, you go through some education period and then somebody asks you a question. It's like maybe analogy would be somebody give you the tools and then tell you that, okay, let's build this together. Let's see, whether you can do it or not. Without taking part, you cannot learn it. You cannot understand what it is. So you have to go through this experience. You have to be examined. You have to be shaped. So the life is a realm of examination, meaning life is nothing but full of, the certain opportunities, the experiences that you go through to understand something. If you prefer to go through them with your eyes open and try to understand things, like while building something, you try to learn rather than just imitate and get some muscle memory. Just try to understand what is happening and so on and so forth. You will become educated. Otherwise, you will become nothing. So you will not go through this experience. This is how I understand. Like the example of exam in classroom, I think it helps. I don't have an issue with that. But the problem there is it's so instantaneous. Like it happens and then you are tested and you are done. Like it's not the process. Like the learning itself is the examination. With this example of exam in the class, it's just at the end or in the middle. It's not the part of, you can say that, yeah, exam is also part of the education, but it's not the journey itself. Yes, exactly. As if it's a, judgment day, but it also helps you to learn.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
So what if I modified it in this way? I'm curious to know how you would receive it. Now, within the humanities, the more humane parts of education, perhaps, final exams can also take in the form of like papers, right? And there can be a process in which you first write a draft, you share it with your professor, They guide you along the way, right? They say, oh, what about this? What about that? You get feedback, you revise it again. There's a slightly more perhaps like process aspect to it where you're receiving, revising, trying to understand. What do you think about that?
Like you should still add the parts. Like you attend the classroom, right? This is the examination. Attendance is the part of the examination. Listening to the professor is the part of the examination. It's not just the paper that you write.
So, I mean, yeah, in terms of the analogy, you're saying every aspect of that is the education.
Exactly.
Right.
So for instance, when he talks about using fire to separate coal and the diamond, right? So it's not like, you weigh them or look at the colors and decide which one diamond, which one coal. The fire is part of the process, right? To separate them. Through the heat, they get the heat, something happens to coal, another thing happens to diamond, and then they are separated. Through the process, they are separated. Another example could be like the pressure, for instance. You apply pressure to coal, so you examine coal, and it becomes diamond if it has the potential. So when we take it this way, the life is, yes, it's a place of examination, because every experience I go through is an examination. I'm expected to learn something within this experience. Sometimes I prefer, sometimes I don't prefer to learn. And I, take a stance. I said, no, I will not learn, or I will learn. And my quote unquote level changes, right? Through every experience. I become something new.
I think, for me personally as well, I find the term like opportunity as well very helpful, right? Because every examination doesn't mean it's not an examination, but it's also an opportunity, right? Every class, every attendance. So every moment, every experience being a sort of divine opportunity, that's invitation that's offered. But I wanted to go back to you, Zaha, because you raised your initial concerns. Are they satisfied? Do you remain dubious about their validity? Yeah.
Still have a little bit of confusion about why the term competition is used. Is that because it kind of at the beginning it felt like, oh, you're in competition with some people that might be better than you, or some people that might be worse than you. But I could also take it as, well, I'm constantly in comparison or in competition with myself and my potentialities. Just from Nursi's perspective, I was wondering, how are we to understand the arena of competition term that he's using multiple times? But other than that, everything, the analogies or examples that we've given, it makes sense that like the fire itself is the experience or the examination. The outcome, the separation between coal and diamond might just be the outcome of that. We will see it, but the purpose of life itself is not to, separate it out and see who's better, who's not. So I'm just still wondering, what was the purpose of mentioning competition in this context?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Go ahead, please.
I do the same thing, like this, like more than an answer. There's a confession. So when I try to do something, for instance, what I do is I try to do it better than Abdurrahman, or better than, I don't know, Yusuf, right? Atik, doesn't matter. I cannot do it better than Zerin, so I don't try. But this is how my mind works, right? I need to do it better than Yaqub, and that's my, let's say, the threshold. So we have this tendency, take it this way. But also there's another aspect of it, I guess. Like like forget about, the religion and so on. So like anything here that you do, let's say you are cooking. So one reason, at least one reason that we don't even try to do cooking good is that we don't care. Like I say, after all, it's just for nutrition. Whether I cook this way or that way, it doesn't matter. So I try to extract something out of it without respecting what I'm doing. Like the process of cooking and so on, I don't care. And this is problematic because it means, you're not giving its due to something that you experience. When you respect your experiences, when you respect your examination, just talking about yourself, you say, okay, sorry. When you respect what you are doing, you say, okay, this can be done in better way as well, right? So you try it. If you learn something new, you say, okay, maybe I should try this as well, and then it will become better. So you can take competition or being better in that way as well, rather than competing with others from your perspective, competing with, your current situation. Where am I? How am I doing it? Can I do it better? Not because, you want something better. It's not like, in this perfectionist sense of, doing things. There, again, the what is important is the outcome. I want something better, more shiny, like a shinier or, I don't know, bigger, whatever. This is not the thing. Like the process itself, you respect. You say, I'm looking at the way my creator is doing, right? How he teaches me. And I see the perfection there. And I say, okay, this is my duty as well. Whatever I'm doing, I should try to make it better to the extent I understand, so that, again, my understanding of things will become better. When you try to cook better, for instance, like when you compete yourself, you better understand what cooking is. How ingredients, come together, how heat treat them, and so on and so forth. You understand better when you compete yourself. You can take it with others as well, in the sense that, okay, they learned that much, they understood that much, but I understood less. So I could reach their level as well. I should reach their level. But it's all about, where you are and where you want to become.
Going off of what you just said, I think competition is for we shouldn't think about competition with other people. We can think about competition for something, competing for something, because every time there is something valuable, there is a competition for it. For example, let's say there is a toy over there, and since we don't see it valuable, we don't compete for it. But if there is something valuable, then there's always competition for it. For example, we work hard, study so hard to get something valuable off of it, like getting some money, some recognition, fame, whatever. So what Quran teaches us, and I believe Nursi has taken this from Quran in terms of the concept. Quran describes Jannah, heaven, and the relationship with God is the ultimate valuable thing to compete for. And it negates all the other things, all masiva, everything other than related to God is valueless. So, and Quran says that if you are going to compete for something, compete for it. compete for Jannah because it's the most valuable thing. That's why there must be a competition for it, not with others, I think, because it's eternity. It can everyone can get it, but it's for something. That's why I think competition is useful.
Jazakumullah khair. We're gonna pause here because it's 8:15, and then we will reconvene inshallah at 8:30. Assalamu alaikum again. Inshallah, let's continue from where we left off. So we had left off on the note of education, competition, right? How we can understand competition in terms of both with others, as Brother Burkhan was explaining, and also within ourselves as well, right? And I know one brother had a question. I am not seeing him right now, but okay, he's praying. Okay, so he can share his question afterwards. But I wanted to also bring the mic back to Kadir, so I'm glad to see it's right there, because I know you also had this had questions. So what is your state of being as of now, Kadir? Have some of the comments. Okay, so I will get to the others. Let me start with Kadir. Well, the second one? Oh, that's okay. Do we see the second mic somewhere?
It's not worth stealing, guys.
Can it be on there somewhere on the shelves, perhaps? Who was the last person to pick? Okay, let's. Did Brother Birkan take it with him?
Did we put it down? No, we didn't see anything though. We like picked it up. It's possible. It's fine. We can try. It's not a problem. Yeah, we can try. Did we? No.
Over there. Can it be behind you? Oh.
Oh.
Okay.
I think this is.
So you found it. Inshallah. I transgressed the right of Brother Birkan by saying he took the mic, but we found it. So now we know you did not take the mic. He has bigger concerns. So Kadir, let's hear from you, and then we'll go to the brother, and he had a comment, and then we'll go to Sultan afterwards as well. Inshallah.
All of the like discussion that we had before the competition thing, like I think that was a really good answer for all of the question that I had, and really made sense to me, like how it is a learning experience. Like every interaction that I have in this world, it is a learning experience for me, and it is an opportunity for me to get closer to my creator. But for the competition, and I want to take a different road on that path as compared to like what is being discussed. As like I think there is like a sense of competition between ourselves that should exist, and there is like the good kind of hasad as well that I've read in like that is mentioned that you should do, is like you should see other people that are doing righteous deeds that are like better than you, and you should try to be better than them or be like them. And then if you read the Khutbah Hajjatul Wada, it says like no one is better than the other person, expect like, but in terms of taqwa. So I do feel like there exists this competition, and we should look at it that way. Like maybe if someone has a better level of taqwa than me, I should try to attain that. And in the end, like that could translate to what the author was saying, like how the souls are being better than the other one.
Yeah.
So that is how I kind of understood the competition thing.
And I like that. I'll just jump in real quick for a moment. I like that because usually when we think of competition within our own affairs, it's competition for something that has a limited resource. Oh, you want that job? I want that job too. Well, there's one position. So we're competing. So it's at someone's expense, right? But when it's competition in terms of coming to know my creator, the resource there, he can fulfill my needs just as he can fulfill Sarah's needs, right? If I see something that a friend has, I can say, yours is the endless treasury. Like you gave it to her, you can give it to me as well, right? So that the context of that competition changes as well. Because we have, as I continue to think about this, we have a feeling of competitiveness, right? Sometimes it comes out in board games, sometimes it comes out in other arenas of life. But the point is not to extinguish that feeling, right? But to see how I can use it in terms of coming to know my reality, coming to know the one who has given that quality to me. So reading it in his name, if you will. Thank you, Kadir. I think we had a question here, so we can go there and then we'll go to Sultan after.
Comment. I did want to mention about the competition over finite resource. So I guess you already said that, sister. But I guess something that Birkan was saying was like, you need to be shaped. You need to experience rather than a what were we saying? Like rather than a examination experience. And Brother Yusuf was saying, so that you get to know your own self, your own worth. But why should I know this? Like, what if I don't want to know this? You know, like kind of like an ostrich, you put your head in the sand because every time I look in the mirror, I'm like disappointed. And I guess that like, you know, when you look for the examination grade, you can be overwhelmed with fear. Like I'm in the same way. Like, I guess that's the idea. I don't know. Maybe this is like kind of a devilish question, but I don't know.
It's a question that exists. Maybe. So let's go to Sultan, and then if anyone wants to respond to that question as well.
So I wanted to echo what Virkan was saying about examination being like beyond just like this knowledge or like this idea of testing and whatnot. Like when I first learned English, examination wasn't like a test. You know, test had its own word, but examination was more like examine a paper, examine a text, study it. It's not like you're given a question and you're trying to answer that question. It's like take something and try to like understand it and try to, you know, understand in a very like solid way. So when I take the first like 3 words, the religion is an examination, I think of it, oh well, I guess I have to study something. I have to like focus on something. I have to try to understand something. And it's like nowhere near does this idea of test kind of come into interplay. And I think it's kind of like important to focus on that aspect as well, of like, you know, trying to study, because, you know, the past few weeks we've been reading this like prophetic stories and we've been trying to understand how to read them in the first place. And that's also a form of examination, right? Like it's not just like, oh, it's a test. So I feel like when we just call it a test, I feel like it's a bit reductive, and I don't find it like necessarily productive. Yeah, and I think this idea of scrutiny and like trying to understand, I feel like when we make this analogy with like a coal and a diamond, I mean, like on the surface, yeah, the diamond may look, you know, appear better or like more valuable, but if you try to actually take the diamond and see and measure it and like try to study its properties, who knows, maybe it's fake, right? Like when I first came to, I lived in Singapore before, right? And I would go to a mall, and Singapore is a tropical country. So instead of snow, to emulate this experience of Christmas, they would make fake snow, and that's not real snow. So that was like kind of like ridiculous for me. And you know, if you show that picture that Brother Yusuf mentioned, you know, about like bees writing Allah, like these days people would probably call it deep fake, right? Like, so I feel like it's not just about like, you know, oh, diamond is better than the coal, but also it's like really about understanding and studying the things that we look at beyond just like, you know, mere appearances and superficial thoughts. Thank you.
I think more than the atheists, the believers would call it fake too, right?
You should just call it fake with the honey.
Right.
So I was checking the words that the author is using. So he uses the word imtihan, ibtila, and these are the exact words that are mentioned in Quran in various places. So Quran uses these terms, and these terms has a connotation in our day-to-day language as well. I mean, in today's world, it's with the mass education, it got a different tint. But still, if you were to try someone, let's say Safa comes into the house and intentionally I left $50 on the floor to see what Safa will do. In my case, it is going to be more so to understand Safa. But if I am a teacher of Safa and I taught him that stealing is bad before this test, And also I taught him that greed is not good. And yet I wanted him to see something that, like, theoretically understanding this, it stays there, but Safa has different feelings. So intellectual understanding is one way. So I left this $50 on the floor so that Safa is going to see something, which is he now has this feeling which was not tested before. Yes, his intellect, well, when $50 was not there, says, of course, yeah, stealing is bad. But when the opportunity arises, and then there's this desire which pulls him towards that direction, which says, well, it's just $50, man, not a big deal. Now he starts making up excuses. Now it is time for him to really learn whether stealing is bad or good. Before that moment, he was taking my word. But now I am offering him an opportunity to reconsider what he learned. And now truly, after this trial, it's going to become ingrained in him to say that, yes, actually, stealing is bad. And this way of testing, I don't know, feels very, this is how education is happening for human, as far as I see. And Quran using that term in this case is not being, at least to me, it's just describing how human is. It's not explicitly saying that. I mean, as one scholar in Turkey, I mean, so supposedly a scholar, pulling up the verse, literally saying, we created you, put you here, so that we learn who is better, who is worse. Like if you literally read Quran in this way, of course, it's going to come into funny interpretations. But as I read it as Quran is describing me, myself, why am I here? And yet Quran uses the word imtihan and ibtila in there, meaning that you are going to be tried with this. Like word ibtila, we have seen it when we were studying Surah An-Najm at Penn on Tuesdays. So when the Creator tests them or makes ibtila to them, tries them with giving more, they would say, oh, God has favored me. And when God gives them little, then they would say, God has betrayed me. So, I mean, definitely in this case, the Creator is saying that, let me see, I have been providing you so far a lot anyways, but I'm going to give you a little more. What would be your response? Oh, Alhamdulillah, God is favoring me. Then God gives you a little less. Oh, God is not betraying me. So the Creator wants me to see something about myself. So it's a, as was mentioned, learning process. It's a tool in teaching, but I am the one that's going to learn out of that. Yeah.
I just want to say, and I'll let you continue in a moment. I think this, I just want to underline what you're saying, because this distinction is, I think, extremely important in contrast to how we usually understand imtihan or being tested, right? In the context that we usually understand it in, it's, oh, God is testing me. He's going to see what I do. And this falls to my reasoning, because in that example, if the purpose of you leaving that money there was to see if you could trust it, it's like, well, don't you know me? Like, don't you, I'd be insulted. I'd say, okay, like this friendship is not, you know, if you had to test me, that means we didn't have that friendship in the first place, right? If my Creator has to test me to find out, well, don't you know me? Right? But when the aim or purpose of such a understanding of examination is for my benefit, right? To instill, to solidify a choice. Like I can say, because as you were citing that example, I was thinking, well, okay, like I could have a sort of a understanding of my Creator, like you are the most merciful. But then he tests me with a life event where I inevitably, not inevitably perhaps, but go through a series of questioning of, okay, so you want to instill within me that you are indeed the merciful. I can still experience your mercy through this event, but did I have to experience this much? Right? Like, did I have to go through this kind of examination? But it is precisely through that sort of environment, let's say, or through that sort of creation, that I can then have that firming of conviction in him as the merciful. Then me saying he is the most merciful takes on a much different hue right? Much different solidification in my life, in my understanding of what that term encompasses. But go ahead, please. You want to continue?
And for question of Safa about what if I don't want to learn? So I'm going to rephrase it. What if I don't want to learn? Because this is what it boils down to. And this sounds like you are a student, you are put on this campus, and you are enjoying the gym and everything. But then you are reminded that you are on campus, and you're on campus because you're here to get a degree. But you say, well, I enjoy the party, I enjoy the gym and everything, but I don't want to become a student. Like that portion of it, I don't want. Like how, I mean, that part is, I mean, do I have the, I don't know, incentive to say such a thing is my question. Like this sounds a little bit like spoiled to me, because in this case, what's happening is I think I have the right to enjoy. And now somebody comes as if says that, well, you also have to learn. And I say, well, how dare you are asking this from me? This is being my attitude in this case. I should rather ask in the first place, how do I enjoy the gym? Why do I enjoy the gym? Like, what is happening in there? To be able to make such a statement saying that, do I have to learn? The question is, definitely the person who makes such a statement is taking things for granted, which is, of course, I'm going to enjoy. Like it's my right. It is, what else? Like, shall I feel hardship? Shall I feel torture? These are the extras. Somebody's putting burden on me. Otherwise, enjoying life is my default. This is what it's supposed to be. Like taking this for granted leads you to ask the question of, do I have to learn? Why are you causing me trouble? I don't want this. What do you want? Well, I want to party. This part needs to be questioned. The things that I take for granted is making me ask that question. What could be the norm? I should have said, well, where did the joy come in the first place? Because I am being given this joy. If I realize that it is being given, then I would ask the question, if somebody gives this to me, what is that person expecting from me? This is the most human thing to ask. Rather than taking it for granted like a spoiled child, your father kept paying you and now says, okay, now it's time for taking the courses too. You say, how dare you ask me to take classes? Just keep paying my party money. Like this is the attitude of that question.
In that example, like the student or whatever person is enjoying life, like what if you're not enjoying life at all? You're just like, your whole focus is just the exams and that's all you care about. Like in my case, like just look ahead to grad school, that's all. Don't even party, don't even use the gym. All I care about is the examination. But because of that, it like leaves you paralyzed. Because as I said, it like, you know, whenever you look in the mirror, you feel disappointed. When you get back the exam, another bad one, another repeatedly. And so at some point, you like, that's why I said it was that's why I said it was the depressing question, I guess. Maybe I wasn't able to articulate it, but like in this case, I guess it's coming back to the main point is that we're here to know ourselves or know our creator, but through knowing myself or knowing my creator, I'm very disappointed in myself. So at some point you want to live like an ostrich, put your head in the sand and, or just like ignore all of it. But, you know, that's why I say, why do I have to, it's not out of spoiledness, but it's like out of frustration. Like, why do I even have to experience this?
My answer.
So first, I'll just give priority if Brother Yusuf wants to say something, and then Brother Yaqub also had his hand up. But then eventually, I'll get to you, Sultan. So, do you want to say something, or well, all right, let's give it to Brother.
I just wanted to add one thing to that question. I think still that education analogy is somehow lacking something that I am not able to describe now. but the thing that I wanted to address is that um, experiencing this and getting to know your creator is about your ultimate happiness. That's why it's crucial. It's not something somebody imposed onto you and made you disappointed. I think what Quran tries to teach us and make us realize is that we can understand the things as it is and see the beauty in it, and it becomes meaningful. Otherwise, so many things becomes utterly meaningless. For example, imagine yourself that you are being under, let's say, 250 pounds bench press. What's happening? It's very painful. If there is no purpose, there is no goal for it, it's utterly nonsense. But if you are trying to gain something off of it, it becomes meaningful. And that hardship becomes the most important thing at that moment for you to realize and understand. I think this experiencing what Birkan brother was saying, shaping yourself in a way that sees beauty, rahmah, compassion, hikmah in it, makes everything meaningful and valuable. That's what I was trying to get at. Who was going to say that?
Yeah, like I'm a PhD student, right? So just to add to what you were saying, like I'm a PhD student. I go through this every day. I'm trying to do my research. I get stuck. My advisor is being very, no, like he's not useless, but he's like making me do everything, you know? He's making me go through it. But like, and I can be like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, isn't this crazy? Oh, like, give me something better. Like, give me a job in investment banking or something. Like, let me make like 200K a year, blah, blah, blah. But like I want to be a researcher in the future, right? And I know that in the future, as a researcher, I have to go through this like bouts of like struggle. Like this struggle is part. It's bread and butter of being a researcher. So I'm like, okay, I have to accept it. Like if I don't learn how to handle these periods of struggle like right now, like I will not be fit to become a researcher in the future. And the way I try to understand it, like I say like, oh well, I guess if I want to become a researcher, Allah wants me to go through this. And if I don't want to go through this, then in some, one way or another, I'm sort of disobeying the will of Allah. That's how I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question. So, on the days where, you feel like an ostrich and, you're putting your head in the sand, or let's say, you're fully engaged with, the examination, the competition, and let's say you don't feel like you're doing well, let's say you drop the ball, so to speak, right? Any feelings of or internal feelings with you in the examination or of the examination, what are things, I guess, that come to mind or that we should be mindful of when looking to overcome? It could be self-doubt, it could be shame, it could be just different feelings essentially that would kind of like parallel with having your head buried in the sand essentially. That's just a question that came to mind as I was listening.
So what's that? We have time. First, we will go to Abdurrahman, and then I haven't heard from the sisters in a while, so I want to hear from the sisters, inshallah. Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
I'm watching people. I just wanted to, I guess, my thoughts, because I was also a student, not a PhD, thankfully, but I was also a student. Huh?
Why you are here if you're not?
I suffered enough in my students. I couldn't take it. But I think this is a very like any question most students might have. It's just like, oh, my whole life has been like chasing graduation from high school, then to college, and then now his job, and it's just this constant race, like trying to get the next thing. It's like, where's the joy in this? Like, I just want to chill and party. Like, what party? I haven't seen a party. Like, I think the problem here, though, saying like examination and like how we've thought about it, though, there we see a failure and we get unhappy, like, oh, we failed. Life sucks. But we think we failed because in our minds we have an idea of what success is. Like, we say this is what success is. We've already said success is graduating and getting a high-paying job, or getting high grades, or getting prestige, or having people think I'm successful, or having pride. Like, and when I'm like, oh, I'm not able to have like amazing grades, I'm not able to do all that, then I think, oh, I failed. But I think in this dynamic, there's no idea of examination in terms of like my purpose of life, or God, or the meaning of my life, or none of these things. Like, that success and failure is very worldly. It's just like I failed according to what like I failed against myself. Like, I wasn't able to achieve as much as I wanted to achieve. I wasn't as perfect as I wanted to be. I'm not as amazing as I thought I was. Like, that's the type of failure you go through. And I think if you find that a certain type of thought process takes you to like depression, or to like life sucks, or what's the purpose of this, that's a very good warning. Like, that's a message right there for you. So God is saying, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, I didn't create you to suffer here. I didn't create you to just constantly like fall into depression or hate yourself. That's a message, approach it a different way. And I think the way to approach it is, I don't think the creator is saying in the Quran or anywhere, even in my life, like, you must achieve a certain salary, you must achieve a certain prestige level, or this level, or in competition, you must be better than this person or that person. It's never said. Quite the opposite. The creator always says, the door to forgiveness is open, the door to mercy is open, the door to all of these is open. Like, whenever you fail, it never says you are lost, you will burn from, like, it says, come back to you can, even your sins could become good deeds for you. Like, everything, there's always that door that's open. So I think the examination here, it's not like one where it's trying to cripple you or punish you, or because I don't experience that in my life. So it's not what I don't experience an oppressive creator. I don't experience an oppressive, powerful one. Quite the opposite. I experience a merciful, powerful one. And I have a lot of evidences for that, like such as my family, my mother, and other things. Like, the way I experience my life, I see that I'm learning. It's a merciful process. So I think, yeah, just coming back to this idea of examination, I think like we need to put our life under it. And like, how do I see my life? Does it fit with it? If I think of the examination as in the examination of like school, or like Squid Games or something, where, if you fail, they kill you. That's not the type of examination I'm seeing here. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
So let's have Brother Yusuf speak, just because he's closer to the mic. Were you going to say something? And then we'll make our way here.
So I just want to underline one sentence, half sentence in here. The author's first answer, which is quite the summary of the whole conversation, is religion is examination. That single, like 3 words, religion is examination. And I think this is very substantial. Religion, as we have been talking about this before, like deen is like debt. You are indebted, which is the exact opposite of feeling entitled. Like, I am entitled to feel good. I am entitled to enjoy. How dare you are trying to teach me? In this life, am I feeling entitled, or am I feeling indebted? Religion is this indebtedness. You are being given by default. Anything you have is given to you. Therefore, you should be feeling indebted. This is what religion is saying. This is how your maker could come up and say that I gave you the water. I gave you this pork over there. You can't drink water. You cannot eat pork. Who can say that? Only the one who gives, who owns, can say that. So the idea of religion, deen in this case, is really highlighting the idea that you are not entitled, you are indebted. So this is why now the examination part comes in and says that, are you aware that you are not entitled, yet you are given? Because by this distinction, I'm going to start getting to know the giver. If I take things for granted, I would never know the giver. I would say, well, I already found it. It was the whole time it was there. The water was there. So water is mine, air is mine, and it's my right, I would say. So that's why that single sentence in there is very key. Religion is examination is an important phrase in there.
Although I want to add the parenthetical there, which I don't think you're implying this, but this doesn't mean that I have to accept my reality of just being unhappy and tortured forever or being in that state, right? No, even if things that I don't like occur, I can still see that as a form of mercy. I can still feel content, secure in my existence, as long as I know the joyful thing, the thing I liked was being given, the thing I don't like is also being given by the same source, and that I'm not left alone in the process. And so this recognition, that taqwa, that awareness, can give me a sense of ease, even when I'm going through something that I do not like. And I wanted to add that and abuse my power as moderator. Sada, please go ahead.
I I just wanted to, I don't know, I was just wondering if we even have a choice when like whether we want to be examinated or not, like examined, sorry, or not. So I feel like as long as we're living, we will be examined whether we want it or not, or whether we because the opportunities are being and the choices are being created for us, as we discussed it before. So for example, if I'm walking down the street and I saw someone asking for money, and then this opportunity has been created for me, and now I have a choice. Should I give money or shouldn't I give money? And now, you know, like, this is an exam for me. I didn't choose to go through this exam. It was created for me. And then if I give money, I learn something about myself, and I don't give money, I learn something about myself. So in any situation, if I see, if it's like someone brought chocolate and then I just go eat this chocolate, I will learn that I have no self-control, for example. But did I want to learn that? Maybe not. But I actually had no choice not about the chocolate. I had the choice whether to take or not, but whether, like, the opportunity there, someone to bring the chocolate, that was not my choice. Like, the people around me are not my choice. The experiences that I'm going through, not all of them, like, they are being created to me, and I have to go through whether I want to know things about myself or about, ultimately about my creator or not. So I was just thinking, I don't think we really have a choice, like, when it comes to the examination, like, where if we live, we have to go through this examination. I don't know what others think.
Jazakumullah khair. I think it's about how we respond, right? So did you have anything you wanted to add? You looked very thoughtful. So I just wanted to offer the opportunity in case you did. Before I turn it over to Brother Birkan, and we're out of time really, but we have a comment here online that says, I have a question about those who do not even have a chance to get education in life, have no idea that the purpose of life is getting to know your creator. What does examination mean for them? And my very short answer to them, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My apologies. I have a question about those who do not have even a chance to get education in life, have no idea that the purpose of life is getting to know your creator. What does examination mean for them? My very short answer to this would be that everyone is constantly receiving an education. It's a different matter whether one is aware of it or not, but every event, every experience, every encounter that we go through becomes a form of guidance, as it is part of that education. And it invites me to think deeply, reflect over it. The doors of that, of coming to know my creator, are always open. So it's about how I respond to them. That is my short answer. Brother Rikan, let's finish with your wonderful words, inshallah.
So the reason, I kind of insist how we define examination and so on, even with the words like imtihan. So when we say, and I think it was really important what Yusuf highlighted, religion is imtihan, the examination. Not part of the religion is examination, but the religion is examination. Not part of the life is realm of musabak or the competition. Life is the realm of competition. So it's like we have this understanding that I will receive some education, which is not examination, which is not competition. And then after that, somebody will make imtihan, will test me. But when Quran describes this, we don't need to take it as, like when we, for instance, give wealth to them. This is a test, right? Just like not giving wealth to them also is a test. So whatever happens with their wealth is a test. It's not like, there's a linear period where you get education and then after that you've been tested. When we take it this way, the last question you read really doesn't make sense. Like, sometimes I assume that I didn't get any education, so why you are testing me? Or, where did this test came from? Like, what was the education before? I didn't even realize it. So entire life, and it changes things a lot. The way we look at the life changes a lot. So then my entire life is there to shape me, to examine me. Otherwise, we start, dividing life into components. This part of my life is about the religion. This part of my life is not about the religion. Or this part of the religion is about that. That part of the religion is about that. So we have these, the divisions. And within this division, we get lost. We try to sugarcoat then words or, the concepts. So when I say, we should take examination in this way, it's not just to be trying to politically correct. Oh no, God is not trying to test us or not. No, we've been through the difficulties, yes. And these difficulties, just like, the happy moments, they are examinations. In my happy moments, I experience something and I need to learn it through this experience. In my sad moments, I experience something new that I didn't experience before, and I learned something new. Both of them are examinations. So my wealth increases as an examination. My wealth decreases as an examination. The fact that I receive a wealth is an examination. The whole life is an examination.
Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, let's end here. Thank you, everyone, for your reflections and comments. I will say, we're out of time, but let me just read the last in short as a conclusion so that we can start a new topic next week. In short, the all-wise Qur'an is wise. It affords everything a position in relation to its value. It affords everything a position in relation to its value. Thus, 1,300 years ago, or much more than that now, the Quran saw concealed in the darkness of the future man's hidden fruits and progress and showed them in a form better than we see and shall see. That means the Quran is the word of one who sees at the same instant all time and all within it. Thus, one flash of the Quran's miraculousness which shines on the face of the miracles of the prophets. O God, grant us understanding of the mysteries of the Quran and success in the service of it at every instant, at all times. And let me just end here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. جزاكم الله خير.